All right, in this video, I'm going to break down a sample of the response paragraph assignment. This is a response I wrote. So let me say a few things overall here about the formatting. You can use the MLA template that's included in Moodle to set up your paper. Remember the first line where student goes here. This is your name, then comes my name, the course, the date. Be sure you include a title, and as the last page of your paper, you're going to include a works cited page. I'll talk more about this a little bit later, but this is the bibliographic information for the source that you end up discussing. All right. The next part I'll go over here is, I guess, our opening here. We're going to look at the they say, I say move, or the they say move that I used to open the paper. This is a template from Chapter 1. When the topic of gender in the workplace comes up, the discussion usually present one of two opposing views. On the one hand, many people assert that women face more problems than their male counterparts, ranging from lower wages to a culture of sexual harassment. Now, all of that is certainly true, but that other point of view is kind of another point of view is brought up by the author that I'm going to summarize, Saul Kaplan. So I'm going to let him represent that, what the other hand is, basically. So while Saul Kaplan, founder of the Business Innovation Factory, agrees that the business world needs to improve its treatment of women, he also worries about the growing education gap between males and females. That's the focus of his article. Now, this before I get into the summary part of that, let me just say a few things about how I introduced that source. And as you notice, if you look through the rest of the paragraph, you'll see that what shows up in every single sentence from here on is Kaplan, 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 Kaplan. As you continue to summarize, you can continue to use the author's name or pronoun referencing the author or authors. And the first use, you include the full name, and after that, you just use the last name. Never refer to your sources by their first name only. I can't be writing about Saul here. I'm going to refer to Kaplan. You don't need to use Mr. or Dr. or Ms. or any of those last names for all you'll need after you've established the author. You'll sometimes see, or maybe you were taught, that when you introduce a source, you include the title, you include the publication information, all of that. Now, I don't think that's as necessary as maybe you were taught to believe. So, in other words, while Saul Kaplan, author of the article, The Plight of Young Males, published in the Harvard Business Review, all of that is actually included on the works cited page. Here's the title, there's the publication. What might be more important is when it was published. That might be something you include. Here I include founder of the Business Innovation Factory because that gives at least a little idea of who Kaplan is in the world. And I'm not even sure that does an adequate job because most people aren't familiar with what that is. But I think if he is the founder of something that includes the words business and innovation, that might give the reader some idea of his credibility. And that's really what you're trying to establish early on, that this is someone who knows something about the topic he's writing about. The summary part of it goes this way. Kaplan notes that females make up 70% of high school valedictorians and 60% of college graduates. That's the education gap he's getting at. This education gap has economic consequences, Kaplan argues. So these are the ands sort of being put together, the 70% and the 60% and the economic consequences. Men without college degrees used to be able to get well-paying manufacturing jobs. But, and that's sort of the butt of the summary, I guess, but now a college degree is necessary, and here's the partial quote of Kaplan, for anyone hoping to make a decent living. And there's the page number. If you have a page number. If you're using a source online, you probably don't have one. So Kaplan's solution is to restructure the education system from a one-size-fits-all pipeline to an individualized approach where every student can find his or her own pathway. All right, well, that sounds all well and good, and it's hard to disagree with that. I think the disagreement would come in how to do that, and that's sort of what my response is. So at this point in time, I believe Kaplan has identified a problem for young men that is every bit as serious as the sexism women face. All right, so I agree with what he says. Unfortunately, the kind of overhaul needed in our education system that Kaplan describes will not happen without a massive effort involving educators, businesses, and politicians at all levels of government. So that's the sticky point, right? But then here's the way I respond to it is what my own experience, and it may be marginal, but this is something I at least have some knowledge of as an instructor here at RCC. A way that RCC has addressed this issue. So one local example of the kind of initiative Kaplan calls for is Rocketop, an apprenticeship program in advanced manufacturing that involves local businesses in Rockingham Community College. Recent high school graduates in the program will get an entry-level job while they earn a free associate's degree. While this program may seem small compared to the need Kaplan outlines, it will provide an important alternative pathway for many young men and women in our county. Okay, that's the reaction, the response part of this. Okay. Now, when you get to the Works Cited page, I mean, this may look awfully complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. You include the author's name first, last name first, and a period. Then in quotation marks goes the article's name. Now, this would either be the title of the article or maybe the name of a web page if you're dealing with a web page. Here comes the publication or the website, and they're often very similar. So Harvard Business Review is the name of the website as well as the publication. This is the publication date. You'll see that commas separate those, and then there's one more comma, and then you paste in the URL. You'll make a period, and then you include the date you accessed it, written in that MLA style of number, month, year. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the original, and I'll show you where this information comes from. So as you put together the Works Cited entry, here's where the URL in the obvious place. The title is The Plight of Young Males, and here's the author. Here's the date of publication. That's really all the information you need. If you have trouble identifying some of this information, it may be the publication date. If there is no publication date, then what I normally do is scroll to the bottom of the page and see if there's a copyright date, which usually is going to be 2021, so you might use that if you had to. But again, for most of the articles that you should be using, this information should be available. If a piece isn't, you might send me a link, and I could take a look and see if I can locate some part that you're missing. Otherwise, you might want to look for a different article. All right, so that's the citation part of this. And again, here's how it ends up looking in your paper. All right, so that's the scope of this, 2 paragraphs. You'll see that the whole thing comes out to be about 324 words when I put them together. And again, as we kind of build on the skills that we put together, our assignments will get a little longer, a little more complicated. But so this is the next brick in the wall, so to speak. All right, see you next time.